Hey guys, quick disclaimer. I have actually played this part you're about to see already. I had recorded it a few days ago, and then when I went back to listen to it, the audio had been completely corrupted. Some kind of bug on OBS's part, and there was nothing I could do to salvage the audio. Yeah, it was just... So, yeah, that had to be completely thrown away, and I am now re-recording this, so I'm afraid my reactions won't be firsthand, obviously, and I probably won't be as scared about what's going to happen in this part, because I already know what's coming. There's one part that has the potential to jump scare me yet again, because it's very sudden, and I've kind of forgotten when exactly it happens, though I have a general idea. So yeah, anyway, you're in for interesting character development as always, lots of spoops, and we actually get to the end of Rebecca's chapter in this episode, so there you go. Little teasy tease for you guys. Let's get into it, and then after this I'll be back to being completely wide-eyed in fear, I guess. Okay. Except the whole thing's off to a bad start, and all of a sudden whatever Isabella claims dwelling in this mansion becomes the least of my concerns. Severely underdressed is a total understatement to describe how I look. Cars, worth more than my own apartment and childhood home combined, line the mansion's front yard. Men and women decked out in their best also flock near the entrance. Most are eager for the festivities to start, while some are simply idling about, enjoying the warm afternoon sun before it sets. But once the woman standing at the front porch speaks, their undivided attention immediately shifts to her. Presumably Miss Wright, from the confident manner she holds herself among present company. This, despite keeping a far simpler appearance than the rest of her own guests, or not having her husband beside her. A trait worthy of utmost admiration at best. At worst, she's the envy of every woman, the subject of every gossip in Luxburn.
Welcome everyone!
And Mum said we could have been good friends? I can't even picture myself mingling with the kind of guests she has. Though I admit she does seem similar now that I've seen her this close. Memories of sitting in a vanity not mine, being dressed in clothes too fancy for my taste. They flit briefly in my mind until her cheerful tone rises above the buzz of her enraptured audience again.
Please, make yourselves at home!
I wish I can share her enthusiasm, really. But being surrounded by all this extravagance, for the lack of a better term, merely makes me dread how the rest of the night might go. Also knowing there might be some truth to what lies inside the place helps drive the unease further by a notch. Ashton, on the other hand...
Be careful with Shirley, alright?
Yeah, we're about to be not very impressed with Ashton. For someone who abhors gatherings like this, he already seems right at home, standing with an air too lackadaisical as he watches the valet drive off with his bloody car.
Can't you at least act with a bit more shame?
Becca, if I find a single scratch on Shirley, there will be hell to pay.
Those guys know what they're doing. They're handling cars worth more than your precious Shirley.
My disdain has likely shown beyond the tone of my voice, quite possibly in the form of a grimace. He chuckles, a rare moment where mirth and amusement danced across his features. Try as I might to pull up a stern glare, I can't help but join him instead. There's something in the lightness of it, and how easy this kind of interaction falls into place, when we don't let feelings get too involved, in spite of being stuck in a situation we're not fond of. It brings back memories. However, the moment doesn't hold. All of a sudden, Ashton grows quiet.
Chief?
An odd expression flashes momentarily across his face, though he blinks it away before I can figure out what it is exactly.
Ashton, what's...
Sorry, Becca, I just saw someone I need to catch up with. Longtime friend.
Yeah, a little suspicious that the chief of police is at a person of interest home-warming party, to be fair. It doesn't help that he isn't even making an effort to spare a glance my way when he answers. Instead, they're focused at some point in the crowd. His gaze darting between people walking past us until a small frown forms in his face.
Oh wait, Ash! Oh, what about...
This won't be long. Be careful while I'm gone, okay?
I meet the smile he hastily throws my way with a frown of my own. What does he mean by that? But before I can ask already, he has turned his back from me and is walking away, without a single explanation whatsoever. In some desperate effort, I try to catch up to him, if only to know what warranted this sudden departure and his odd warning at the end.
Hey, be careful! About what
Only for my attempts to be interrupted by a muffled ringing from my pocket. Mum's cheerful voice greets me as soon as I answer.
Yes, I'm at the party already, Mom.
That 180 is so funny to me. Like, excuse me, what about... Oh, hi, Mom, how are you?
Yes, I'll say hi to her if I can.
The conversation itself doesn't last long because Mom didn't say a word. Just a simple hello, a reminder to enjoy the party and to send their regards to their old student. But when the call ends and I get to look up, Ashton's already heading inside. With a sigh, and admittedly a little disappointment, I tuck my mobile back into my pocket and follow after him.
So much for a date.
I forgot about deep voice Becca there for a second. Even with familiar company, this is somehow shaping up to a terrible evening. The party hits full swing an hour later. With the host's opening remarks given, still no sign of her husband, the poor woman, and the guests promptly fed, the band shifts the melody to a livelier tune. Soon, laughter and the rhythmic tapping of shoes fill the room, all in accordance to the lifting strains of music. It seems... fun, I admit. Fascinating at certain moments, the flurry of dancers making the music their own, almost with no care in the world. If I weren't so... indisposed, I'd have joined the crowd for a song or two. There isn't a lack of invitations anyway. Plenty of them, in fact, with some asking more than once. It's only my stubborn refusal that prevents me from joining them. And I can. A single nod is all it'll take, and the evening would have been far enjoyable for me. But pride and my own silly hopes, the thought of being seen with one of them by him, curbs that, as much as I hate to admit it. It's a hard truth to swallow, especially when the very person at the center of it makes denial difficult. Can't even spare me a minute of his attention, or a single glance at me the whole evening. Oh, Ashton. Hell, Zachary might have spoken more words to me. The big guy's busy covering the event to boot. Ash is technically working, but he didn't tell us that, so... But at least he manages to slip in a conversation or two between takes, or a small wave of his hand when he passes by. Alright, I think I said at this point that maybe Becca should get together with Zach, because Zach needs love, and he's a sweet boy. What's Ashton's excuse? He's been flitting in and out of sight the whole time. One moment he's hanging around a small group, in another he's hovering around the string band. Just a second ago he's wolfing down some deviled eggs by the buffet table, a glass of wine in hand. The next thing I know he's gone. If I didn't know any better, I'd say he only agreed to come with me for another reason. And there it is.
I swear, the next person who asks, I'm dancing the night away with. Ashton can go fuck himself.
You would catch his eye a lot better if you wore nicer clothes, don't you think?
Her voice almost makes me jump. Too focused on the gobshite wandering around the ballroom and my own annoyance to notice. If she's heard any of the profanities I've mumbled, or she's taken notice of my discomfiture, she makes no comment on it, merely greeting me with a smile when I turn my attention to her. Miss Hannah Wright gives off a whole different air when she's not speaking to an audience. Homely, a bit too friendly for my liking. But I guess that comes from being raised in such an environment and having to deal with pompous, snooty people. Though, I suppose nothing has really changed from years ago. I remember her carrying herself in the same manner during that one and only visit. She used to play with her hair back then, too. Does she remember any of it? I won't be surprised if she doesn't. It has taken me a while, myself. She's probably met a lot of people like little Becky throughout the years. Might have already forgotten about me or my parents. Except she wrote your parents a personalized invitation, so maybe not? People like her thrive on connections, after all. Nevertheless, I return her smile, awkward and stiff as it may be.
Didn't realize the housewarming was going to be this fancy. I would have gone with a nice dress if I knew.
Oh, you're fine, dearie. It's only really the parvenus, those who climb, that come to these parties all dolled up. Quite the black-haired beauty, isn't he?
It takes me a while to realize who she's talking about. Until Ashton walks by again, in closer proximity than any of the times he has done so far this evening. Because he's keeping an eye on her. Still without a look of acknowledgement our way, though. Even if Miss Wright speaks loud enough to catch the attention of anyone within earshot. I wonder if when we're on Ashton's route, if he does overhear this and just doesn't think anything of it, or if he really just didn't hear it.
Who, Ash?
You know, you really shouldn't have turned down those offers. If I wasn't married, I'd happily go dancing with those young men. But you said a name. Ash. That's the exquisite lad you've been looking at all this time. I don't know him, and I'm the one hosting this party. That must mean you know each other. Is he your boyfriend, then? Because that would explain those rejections.
This isn't the first time someone has made that assumption. Almost every student I've had in the past did. My co-workers, more often than not, assume he is. A few of my neighbors also think we're an item. Not that Ashton has ever reacted to those. He's been quite indifferent about it, in fact. Still, the heat of a blush creeps up my cheeks, a denial ready, despite wanting it to happen so badly myself.
What? No, that's ridiculous. He isn't my boyfriend.
Such a violent reaction. A simple no would have sufficed. Many here would be happy to hear it.
And I haven't been looking at him.
You've been staring. I do my best to summon a straight face, but before her good cheer, it easily falters.
That's right. You've been staring. Quite heatedly, in fact. Although I'm not sure if you look like you want to kiss him or kill him.
It's more the latter currently.
Just don't go murdering him on my property. I don't want to walk into a room and suddenly find a body there.
And this is when we saw the ghost girl as Hana. But we don't see her as Becca. It's infectious in a way. No sooner I find myself enjoying our chat more than I've imagined myself to. Although her attention briefly wavers at one point, she remains a good companion. Because she saw a ghost girl. Even more once I've mentioned who my parents are. Her face quickly lights up, and fondness graces her face, despite the meeting from several years ago being a short one. But of course, there are some things we really can't avoid talking about. After all, it's one of the few things I remember her asking me, the moment she spotted little Becky in the room. Do you have a boyfriend? In retrospect, it's an odd thing to talk about as children when there are loads we could have started with.
Yes, oh, I remember you. You were the cutest little thing with glasses. And when we met, you were having boy troubles with this lad called something with an A.
I believe I still have the clothes she gave me. Chosen also I could impress him. And even back then, Ashton has always been denser than a rock. And that one attempt to get him to notice backfired spectacularly. Sure, he's keen. He's a detective, for heaven's sake. But feelings, more often than not, escapes him.
What was it again? Aaron, Alan, Adele, Albert, Alexander, Andrew?
Which makes this whole talk all the more embarrassing. And the more names she lists off, the more my discomfort grows, until my smile turns into a grimace. What will she think of me? Here she is married, to a man she most probably loves at that, while I'm still stuck in the same place, yearning for the same person.
Ashton! Ash! That man is that boy! The same one. Oh, goodness me, after all these years! I can see why, though. He's quite dashing.
You don't really need to announce it to everyone within earshot, you know? Keep it down.
I'm so sorry, but it really is cute.
She says that, but for a short moment a hint of pity flickers in her eyes. I take that as a chance to change the subject before anything more can be said over the matter. I haven't even sorted these things out for myself. Wonder what that story update is.
This is a nice party, Miss Wright.
Though, to be frank, I doubt she'll be so willing to pass this up. The topic has already captured her attention.
Please, Hana is fine. We're friends of a sort, aren't we? We must be friends, seeing as I know about your little infatuation, Becky. Don't you worry, dearie. You'll have your happy ending yet.
I'm not too concerned about that, am I? That's not what I'm looking for.
Oh? And what makes you think that? Doesn't everybody want their happy ending?
The idea of happy endings sounds like they're just for fairy tales. And they are, sorta. I don't think you can just sit around, trapped in some tower and hope for the best. If you love them, you have to fight for it, right?
And that's the advice we took on Hana's route.
You're not just going to sit there and hope that everything will just fix itself on its own. Like everything, you have to work at it.
Hypocrisy. That's what this is. How dare I preach about something when it's exactly what I've been doing? And then, I go and act as if I'm entitled to any of it. That by virtue of us growing up together, he must return whatever I feel for him. That he's not allowed to look at another because I'm the one who has stayed by his side the longest. When, in the first place, Ashton has always been his own person. This is something I cannot force on him. I can only hold on to these. Take care of it until the time comes I can confess it to him. Great if he reciprocates. Great if he reciprocates. But if he can't. If he won't. Selfish. I've been too selfish.
But what do I know?
I'm sure the daughter of the two greatest professors I've ever known is smart enough to know what she's talking about.
At one point, maybe I would have easily agreed to that. However, the past weeks have also seen changes in the way I view things. As nice as these things sound, it turns out whatever I previously know may not even be true for other people. Or for myself. It is sobering and almost funny how things I might have said with much certainty before now has doubts muddying each of them. But there will be time to mull about these later, because when a hush suddenly descends in the room, a whole different issue rears. Especially when fucking Luke, strides into the now quiet ballroom, fashionably late and oozing with the same pompous mien he always carries around with him.
Good evening, ladies and gents. Enjoying the party? I hope I'm not too late in welcoming you all to the right mansion.
Before long, Hana leaves my side to join him, and it doesn't take a genius to piece it all together.
Welcome one and all to our humble abode.
I was a little disappointed in Becca at this point, 'cause I'm like, you knew what his last name was, and you didn't put... You saw Luke right on the invitation? No? Nothing?
Tonight, if you have yet to find yourself in your roles, you are all ladies and lords of the court of your king and queen, if you would excuse my presumptuousness. So, enjoy the feast that has been laid out for your senses, as we only allowed the best to be served. Enjoy the rest of your night, everyone!
What? His attitude, the manner he carries himself around people, his unfamiliarity with that part of the city. Of fucking course. I should have known. Although I'm partly at fault here. Tabloids and the gossip columns have never been really my thing. I should have also expected that wherever Luke fucking Wright is, some sort of drama will sure follow. He seems the kind of person who revels in it. Figures it'll find him on its own, even when he's not asking for it. It happens amidst a round of applause and hoots that people lagging behind the crowd they've gathered does not catch on until the cheers turn into several scandalized gasps.
I am pregnant with your little bastard. You promised me you'll take responsibility. God damn it, Luke. I finally got you to talk to me after months of silence, and you do this to me.
What do you mean you're pregnant with? Luke, is this true?
Lies and slander, woman! Security! Johans, take her out of here before she makes an even bigger fool of herself!
No, you do not do this to me. I was so ready to leave my stupid oaf of a husband. I told you to leave that damn wife of yours.
Oh, right. This conversation hits me every time.
Look at her. Does she look like she wants a baby? Does she look like she could take care of a baby?
The commotion doesn't go further, despite the drunk woman appearing like she has plenty more venom to spill. In a little while, security shows up, escorting her out. Apparently, she's the chief inspector's wife, too? As if this whole thing can't get any more fucked up than it already is. I wonder what Ash will have to think about that, because he'll probably know Rochelle a little better. What a mess. But the damage has been done, and beyond the repercussions this will bring, I'm more worried about Hana. Maybe Luke, too, in part. I've seen the man that hides behind his self-importance, and it is someone who cares for the person who stands beside him. No matter how questionable that is now. After all, no anger is worse than that of a scorned woman. And Hana? Well, as refined and well-mannered she is in front of their guests, I'm not sure she'll be all too willing to tolerate this. Her party, her home, her husband, and that woman has just dared to walk over it. It's in her eyes when she turns to her. The face of someone who demands she be given the same respect she has long deserved.
You are no longer welcome in any of our estates, our properties, and our businesses. And we will no longer patronize yours. Now, escort the girl and make sure she isn't standing even an inch within our grounds.
Hana's outrage is a strange sight to witness, after those smiles and the grace she has carried herself through the entirety of the party. Like this, her eyes burning bright with fury, I don't doubt she can do so much more. Ruin the scandalous woman if need be. Shaming her is already an act of mercy, generous enough coming from her.
You won't show your face to me ever again if you know what is good for you, Rochelle. Take her away.
No one protests, not even the subject of her ire as she is forcibly dragged out. Even the smile on Luke's face wavers when she eventually turns to him and pulls him out of the room for a talk of their own. For a brief moment, there's a concerted effort between those left in the hall. A short second of tense silence while struggle to figure out what to do with themselves. But true to the kind of talk these situations attract, it doesn't last too long. Soon chatter explodes throughout the whole ballroom. Worried murmurs, clicking of tongues, and inappropriate gossip filters through the thick tension in the room. Most of them haven't even left the premises and they're already talking about it. Tomorrow it'll be on the news for sure, in every local broadsheet and tabloid in Luxburn. I couldn't care less about any of it. Simply thinking about this already gives me a headache. When the shock has faded, I just feel bone-tired. I've accomplished nothing of what I've come here for, and apparently Ashton has disappeared sometime during the commotion. I wonder if he went to help the chief with Rochelle? I'm not sure what pisses me off more. That he ignored me the whole evening and might have just left without saying anything? Or knowing he obviously has some other motive for being here. Can't he at least trust his own friends for that?
He didn't have to lie to me.
The only relief to be had in this, perhaps, is Zachary's comforting smile when he approaches. Out of curiosity, where are you guys? That's right, we didn't really interact with you on Zach's route, and we haven't really interacted with Zach on your own route. The only relief to be had in this, perhaps, is Zachary's comforting smile when he approaches. He appears as disturbed when he stands beside me, fiddling with the buttons on his camera, even though the device is off.
Eventful night, huh?
You can say that again. It was awful.
He pauses for a moment, stares at me intently. Then he laughs, a tired one but filled with humor in spite of what we've witnessed.
Let me guess. Ashton.
Good guess.
Oh, what makes you think he's my problem?
Just a hunch.
I wonder what that update is.
And, it's all in your face, actually.
Thanks.
Why does he have to? I don't understand that man anymore.
Like I always say, you should just...
Actually, that's an interesting line from Becca now that I think about it. Now that I've heard it twice. I think Becca has... I wonder if Becca is in love with Ash, or if she's in love with the Ash she knew as a kid. Because he's changed. And I think she might have been keeping him in this little time bubble in her brain. And she loves that, and she doesn't really understand Ashton anymore. I don't know. Just a thought that occurred to me. Maybe she's not actually in love with Ashton, but what Ashton used to be.
Oh, you can bet your ass we're going to have a very long talk. I'm not letting him off easy this time.
I'm sure he has a good reason.
He always does. But he should learn to communicate a little bit better.
You won't say it, but he likes being around us. Heck, we're probably the only people he likes. He ain't gonna ruin that for something stupid. He can be dense, but he ain't dumb.
But that's exactly what I've been telling people, isn't it?
We'll see about that. I just want to go home. Are you done here?
Nah, sorry. I can't until the party ends.
It's all right. I'll just take a cab or something. I'll see you later, Zachary.
Before removing myself from the room, I lay a comforting hand on his arm. He'll need it among these people. And then I am gone, more than ready to end the disastrous night as early as possible. And then this scene happens that I was not expecting. As it turns out, the night isn't done with me yet. Because no sooner has the porter closed the door behind me, I find myself standing alone in the foyer with one Luke Wright. No sign of his wife. Just him and the agitated clicks his shoes make while he treads around the empty room. Away from the media's prying eyes and their guests' judging stares, it's easy to glean how much the scandal has him shaken. Not to the point where he has utterly lost his composure. He appears to have mastered himself enough not to. But an ample opening is there for a nervous edge to show on the lines of his shoulders.
What do you know?
The man is not as tough as he makes himself out to be. Sure, I've seen this before. Briefly, in that 1 second in the hallway at school. It's a strange matter, however, to witness this out in the open. Behind closed doors, this is the real Luke Wright. Though maybe that's because he hasn't noticed my presence yet, busy as he is with his thinking. If he's aware, I doubt he'll be acting like this. His pride is one thing he will always wear with him. Even now, when I place a gentle hand on his shoulders and he whirls around to face me, there's a second-long moment of anger flashing across his features before it dissolves into confusion. He tucks it away as quickly as he can, but it does nothing to change the impression I've built of the man in my head.
Daisy, must you be everywhere?
We've only met 3 times, Luke. Quit the dramatics. Besides, shouldn't you be aware of who gets invited to your party?
If I was, there wouldn't be any of that scene tonight. That munter wouldn't even get an inch within this property. I'd banner off Luxborn if I could.
He probably pawns everything off to their servants in Hana. Pompous, elitist douche.
Did you just come out here to lecture me about it? Because, Daisy, I've had enough of it for one night. I don't need to hear another one.
You are a very unpleasant man.
So I've been told. Will that be all? If so, I suggest you go back and join every bloody goss in that room.
Not everything. As unpleasant and frustrating talking with this man is, he deserves the benefit of the doubt at least. The questions and criticisms aren't lacking, of course. But right this instant, there's only one that comes to mind. And this was a very easy one to do because, is it true, it's none of our business. We are not involved with this guy. As Becca said, we've only met him 3 times. And the most important thing is you should be with your wife. So that's what I picked.
You know, brooding over here isn't going to fix this mess.
Which was a good answer. We also got the achievement here, I think. It was something like TLDR, quit sulking. Which is really funny.
Again with the lecture.
Will you stop calling it that?
Very well, what should we call this then? A heart-to-heart?
Sure.
Please don't. I might puke. And just so you know, I don't want to talk about feelings. Ever.
This isn't one, all right? It's just a friendly concern. Bloody hell, can't you just take it for what it is?
He pauses at that. Suddenly, he doesn't know what to do with his hands, and in the end, he simply stuffs them back to his pockets and sulks. There probably aren't many people who tell him that. He's a difficult man to get along with, after all. I honestly won't give him a second of my time if I didn't see a different side to him. Dealing with him requires more than patience. When the awkwardness passes, mostly coming from him, he merely glances away. But the tightness in his shoulders has eased, and when he speaks again, despite his rather rude choice of words, none has any venom in it.
Friendly concern, right. While we're at it, I should mention that Hana used to call that Viper friend. Now I think she might want to strangle the munter if she sees her again. After she's done with me, of course.
I doubt she's going to do anything like that.
What do you even know about this?
Oh, I know enough. You may look like a sleazy douche, and you still are, by the way.
Just so you know. It's almost comical how fast his face shifts from mild disdain to offended, but I don't let it distract me. These things need to be said, and he needs to hear them. even though they're coming from some meddling stranger.
But you have your few good moments. I might even say that you're a decent person, if I'm in the mood. Now go. If you really love her, you've got to try and fix this yourself.
I love that she gave Luke the same advice she gave Hana. Consistency.
Maybe tomorrow.
No. You don't let the sun set with you guys being angry at each other.
Luke!
Daisy, did you see her earlier? Was that the face of a wife who wants to have a chat with her cheating husband?
Well, at least you admitted you did something wrong. Good for you.
Alright, I remember this part. I was like, do you want a gold star? And then...
How about a star? Would you like a star to go with that good deed?
I was so proud. I was like, Becca, you and I have been in sync for the first time. Oh, it was so good.
Don't get used to it. Do you realize how awkward this is?
Oh, I do.
Before I've even thought about what to say, I've known there can only be two ways this can go. All things considered, it isn't as bad as I've assumed. However, there are still some things my brand of encouragement can't fix. His marital problems, first and foremost. His attitude follows right after. Concerns aside, I can't help with those. Those are things only he can fix, and it's definitely not by standing around here bantering.
Don't worry, I was just about to leave. Feel free to continue with your brooding once I'm gone. I'm not going to tell anyone. Cross my heart.
You think this is funny, Daisy?
You think this is funny? Laughter is the only response I give him. With a slight wave of my hand, I end it right there and walk away. Although, I can't resist the urge to glance back before I leave, if only to have one last look at the man he really is. But, the instant I turn my gaze on him, I see it. Not creepy at all. It's all yours. I'm not going after that this time, just FYI. Looming, hovering over his shoulders, drawn to him like a moth to a flame. Like the first time I've stepped inside this place in search of Isabella. He was there too, wasn't he? That man, along with his wife and another person. Miss McCullough? And that shadow. No. A woman now. Her. No longer a dark blur. Terror rushes through every vein in my body. A crippling sensation gripping every part of me while she stares at me with a glare filled with nothing but hate and venom. It's like staring at the eyes of a woman I've unknowingly robbed of something precious. I try to say something. A warning. But before I can gather my wits and voice it out, someone shuts the door behind me. As if to keep outsiders away from the secrets this mansion possesses. Creepy. Let's read about it. There we go. As she was about to leave the party, Rebecca caught sight of a sulking Luke. She reminded him that brooding wouldn't fix anything and that he should be with his wife instead. Before leaving the embarrassed man, Rebecca caught a glimpse of a shadow standing behind him. The brush of fresh air against my cheeks does little to dampen the chill in my bones. By now the sensation, the fear and disquiet, it leaves whenever I see her, is familiar enough for me. Already it has made a home in my nerves. I don't even notice my trembling hands until I cross my arms across my chest. The cold from the tips of my fingers seeps through the thick material of my shirt. Neither of it helps bring together some semblance of coherent thought in my head. But I know I should.
Someone has to tell that douche.
I start walking back before fear can cripple me again. I was like, dang, she's gonna go back and tell the two of them like Zach tried to tell them. It's not wise. Returning, that is, especially after what happened. But Hana's still an old friend, and Luke doesn't deserve whatever misfortune that letter might bring. I can't just leave those two in there. Isabella's right. She's real, and there's something she wants from everyone who has read that.
Becca, where'd you go off to? If we're done here, let's go.
I was like, Ash, you're still here? My mistake. The second his voice cuts through the crisp night air is that I've allowed my annoyance to get the better of me. Wait a minute, I have something more important to do. Fuming, purpose forgotten, I whirl around and march towards him. One accusation after another piles up at the tip of my tongue, ready to be hurled at any moment. There is no hesitation holding me back when I fling it at him. That straight face he keeps as I do so doesn't help temper my anger either. Blech. It only makes me want to slap some more sense into him.
Shouldn't I be the one asking you that?
Becca, I've been waiting here the whole time. I told you I hate parties like...
And before that, where have you been the entire evening?
Right then and there, I might have forgiven him, if he'd shown some ounce of remorse for leaving me like that. Maybe he could have looked away, given me a sign that my assumptions might be right. He doesn't even need to put them into words. A single gesture of confirmation is all I need. Rather, what I get is the same impassive look. He does that whenever he can't disclose anything. He does that whenever he's lying. In the face of it, amidst the thick tension, a frustrated huff is the only thing I can summon.
Be that way. Fine. Suit yourself.
No more words. After everything I've seen and heard tonight, I'm already too exhausted for those. So, without speaking any further, I simply walk past him and stomp over his car. Alright, I'm like... The way it's worded, I'm just picturing her, like, getting up on Shirley and, like, stomp, 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 stomp. Over to his car. Although, before I can pull open the door, he calls out. One hand outstretched, a gentle weight on my shoulders.
Wait, Becca.
He pauses, his brows furrowing and lips curving into a slight frown. I can almost see the gears turning in his head while he tries to piece together everything he wants to say. Before, perhaps I might have waited patiently for those. He's not a man fond of using words to express himself. More often than not, any gesture of honesty will only come out blunt and coarse when forced. But today, for one reason or another, I simply can't summon that forbearance.
Ashton, if you're just going to waste my time again...
Becca, listen. I don't know how else...
That much is obvious. Why don't you just take the whole bloody night? Go on. I can wait until next year.
Oof.
Better yet, why don't you just keep it all to yourself like you always do? It's not like...
Rebecca, will you hear me out first?
The silence I can offer him, though whether I'll believe what he's about to say is still up for debate. A very long debate.
I honestly don't know how else to put this. I'm aware your parents have some kind of history with Hana Wright, and somehow you're friends with her. But you should stay away from these people for now. Especially the husband.
Who? Luke?
His expression deepens into a scowl at my mention of the name, but whatever opinion he has, he doesn't immediately voice. Still, something about it has greatly displeased him, evident in the stiff note his tone assumes.
Yeah, he's bad news.
It's my turn to frown this time. What does he mean by that? And I kind of dithered over this choice a little bit. Because I'm like, I don't really know what the difference is. But I kind of went on the assumption that asking this is more like focusing on Luke rather than on Ash. So I thought if I focused more on Ash, Ash would appreciate that a little bit better. And
Care to explain your reasons?
that worked out in my favor as well. Hooray! I've not meant for it to sound as harsh as it does, but anger and frustration have never been a good match in me, particularly in nights like this. It's not surprising when Ashton jerks back as if I've struck him. For a fleeting moment, something akin to hurt darts across his features, his eyes narrowing and hands closing in tightly into a fist at his sides. Then swiftly he glances away and shifts his focus on the line of trees nearby, like an answer can be gleaned from the dark expanse.
I'm really sorry, Becca.
What is it for? For the party? The vague answers he continues to give? Does it include all those times before this? The year's worth of it? I don't doubt its sincerity. However, at the moment, the forgiveness he's asking isn't something I'm all too willing to hand, furious as I am. It's frankly a wonder how I can keep myself from raising my voice at him.
We'll talk about this tomorrow. And you better have a proper answer for me by then.
There's a brief hesitation before I step away. A short moment of wanting to say more, of waiting if he has anything to add. He's only silent, eyes still trained at a distance. It is the last glimpse I see of him before I climb inside his car. Alright. Another journal thingy. This one's kind of funny to me. Just because we had this, and then it goes immediately to this. It's like they switch positions. Ah, so funny. Rebecca found Ashton waiting for her upon exiting the mansion. Irked because he was nowhere to be found during the entire party, she demanded to know what was going on. When he couldn't give her an answer, Rebecca warned that they'd still talk about it some other time. If the door slams closed with the same force as the anger I'm holding, its sound merely vanishes into the night, unnoticed. He follows soon after, and shortly we're on our way back to the city. Yet even with city's bright lights welcoming us, the dense, somber air from the mansion still lingers. The moon is almost at its highest by the time we reach Salemwell. Even after our respective heads have cooled off, the atmosphere within the car remains rife with unspoken tension. This isn't a problem so easily fixed with a few handshakes. Quite frankly, I don't know what will. Ashton himself has no idea what to do when he alights and dawdles awkwardly in the middle of the car park, unsure. It almost seems like he's having an internal debate, whether he should say goodbye or mutter another apology. I could have driven him away, purely out of spite, the second I've gotten off. Still, old habits die hard. It's late, and Ashton's flat is on the other side of the city. Irritation might still rear its head every time I look at him right now, but I'm not too cruel to put him up on another long drive. Especially when he still appears as if he hasn't gotten any rest.
You can borrow the couch.
I throw the keys to my flat his way before a protest forms on his lips. Although he catches it with ease, he eyes it with a wary expression and shoots a puzzled glance my way.
You haven't been forgiven. We're still going to have that talk, believe me. But I'm not about to send you out on another drive looking like that. It's late. Go get some rest.
We're setting aside a lot of loose ends like this, but he appears to have accepted that reason, at least in the meantime. He does give me another questioning glance when I shove past him, pulling my mobile in the process.
Where are you going? I thought...
You go ahead upstairs. I need to contact Professor Andrew.
Andrew? Why would you... Oh, no. Please. Is this that thing Isabella said this morning? Again? I already gave her my word, Becca. I'll look into this BRC crap. No need to drag the old guy into it.
Ash, you literally sent everyone in our group to Professor Andrew. Let me talk to him. Gosh darn. Of course, he's still skeptical. It makes one wonder if he's even seen anything at all. Figures this curse will stay away from the scoffer. But this is another loose end tonight that I can't just leave alone, Ashton's beliefs notwithstanding. It just so happens that it's one I can delve into using means other than taking a look at the mansion itself.
Ashton, do you really think I still give a shite after that stunt you pulled tonight?
No, but this is...
No. I've spent so many years with him to know this is about to turn into another argument. Before he can finish it, I cut him off with a firm raise of my hand.
Look, I don't care. There are weird things happening around here. And yes, it's Isabella's brand of weird. Ghostly voices, strange sounds, and a bloody woman sitting at the back of my car. You don't have to believe me. And I no longer have the patience to convince you, so just leave me be, Ashton.
He doesn't push it, growing quiet instead, although I know he has a whole case of it prepared inside his head. But there's a reluctant shift in his movement when he steps away from our conversation. Short of climbing the stairs, he stops, turns to face me with an expression almost too... conflicted?
Are you really sure?
What?
That there was something? That you've been, seeing things?
Finally.
Yes, I'm very, very certain. Now go, and you better not break anything in there. The last time I let you stay over, it was that statuette Belle gave me. You haven't even replaced that one.
The last of my reprimand goes both unheard and unanswered as he disappears behind the stairs. If things aren't as strained, he might have a quip or two about that, followed by a light banter. Instead, for a long moment, I am left staring after him. There's something in the way he asked it that nags. Coupled with his expression, the whole exchange just feels unsettling. One that doesn't fade even as I gather my thoughts and shift my focus on another, even as I dial Professor Andrew's number. And that is when it clicks. During the long wait for the professor, one stray thought emerges from the unease. Ashton has not intended for his question to be a jibe. It's concern. For what, though? For my well-being? The letter's curse? The woman I mentioned? The answers for those will have to wait, however. Finally, the call connects and Professor Andrew's voice echoes from the receiver.
Professor Andrew?
Rebecca? It's late. What can I do for you?
I know, I'm sorry, but this is a bit urgent.
After all, this is a more pressing matter. Our lives might be at stake, and we're still in the dark.
Actually, I was wondering if I could ask you to do me a favor.
October 30th, Sunday. Professor Andrew Clark has agreed to meet with me 2 days later in front of Luxburn's public library. He has other commitments, but being a long-time family friend has its perks. I have my parents' connections to thank for that. Of course, I'm not the sort to impose on him often, but the situation is... well, it's not entirely bad, although it does require calling in a few favors from friends like him. Without his signature, I won't be able to gain access to the library's restricted section. If I want to get more in-depth information on the Ermengarde mansion, that is. Not simply what they choose to show to the general public. As much as I hate to admit it, there's always something people censor, and whatever it is, I won't ever find it in the general section. It has to be what they're keeping here beyond the public eye. The thought of that alone makes me antsy. Thankfully, I don't have to brood over it. The wait for the professor doesn't last long. He never did enjoy making people wait. Likewise, he dislikes people who are tardy. He arrives 5 minutes after I do, greeting me with that kind smile and casual wave of his hand. I haven't seen him in so long, but it appears he hasn't changed much. His familiar presence alone is enough for a fond smile to spread across my face.
Professor Andrew.
Rebecca, didn't I say long ago you can drop the professor?
You know I can't possibly do that. Even if I can. It feels disrespectful to call you by your name alone.
Both you and Ashton never listen to this old man. Kids these days.
All right. But just for today, since you're doing me a huge favor, Andrew.
I guess you simply can't have it all, even at this old age. But pleasantries aren't what we're here for, yes? You mentioned you needed a permit.
Yes, sir, if that's okay with you.
More than fine. Anything in pursuit of knowledge, as they say.
He hands me the permit without further prompting. And just like he promised, he's also written a recommendation after his signature. This is more than enough to get me to those files. I mutter a small thanks before slipping it into my pocket. Although when I look back up, his brows are furrowed, the very face of curiosity. Not surprising, considering how vague I've been during our little talk over the phone. Right then and there, I've decided to tell him if he ever asks. Maybe not all of it, but stuff he needs to know. It's the least I can do to thank him. As expected, true to his inquisitive nature, he asks,
If you don't mind, though, I know you've always been an eager learner, but may I know what in the restricted section that piqued your curiosity?
It's the Ermengarde mansion, sir.
He's quick to raise an eyebrow at that, and for a while I fear he'll take the slip of paper back. Is there something in what I said?
The ones they have out in the general isn't enough?
I'm, hoping for a more in-depth read, sir. More about the history and the people who once lived there. The general section doesn't have anything much on that.
Oh, I see. Well, you certainly aren't the first one to be enamored with that place. It doesn't shock me. The architecture is admirable, and the urban legends are something to talk about. Why, just this past week, I've got a few asking me about that. Imagine that.
I thought that was really neat that they actually took into account you meeting him with all the characters so far. Pretty cool.
I think enamored might be a little too much to describe our interest in it. But I have to agree. The mansion is beautiful, even with the renovations. They kept the stained glass windows, too. They are magnificent.
Oh, you've seen it.
I was there for a few hours to attend a housewarming party. The invitation was for my parents, but they couldn't make it. My mum used to work as a private tutor for the Evans. Hannah Wright?
Ah, I know of her. Her husband, too. Who doesn't? Luxbourne's most popular couple.
Something falls behind his eyes, the warmth in them suddenly gone, like he's reliving a painful distant memory and seeing it play right in front of him. It disappears almost as soon as it surfaces, but that look has unsettled something in me.
Is something the matter?
Nothing much.
Andrew.
But you know, you're already like a daughter to me. So if you could, do be careful with the friends you make.
Is this about the rights, sir?
Just a friendly advice from an old man. Don't think much about it. Anyway, I have to leave now. Can't miss my weekly serving of bear claws. Say hi to your parents at the detective inspector for me, will you? I wish you luck with all that research.
Detective inspector.
I will. Thanks for this, Andrew.
Andrew gives my shoulder a light squeeze, the gesture a younger me has always appreciated, and quickly crosses the street after. I watch him until he disappears behind the door to a cafe, until the doubt swimming inside my head finds a moment to rest. Whatever his business is with the rights isn't anything I should concern myself about. But somehow, in the grand scheme of things now, all of it feels oddly relevant. The how, though, I've yet to find out. And I'm hoping the library will give me the answers I want this time. On a gloomy Sunday morning, the library is especially empty. The second floor in particular. I've always considered this place to be a sanctuary, a respite away from the hubbub of the city. As a child, I grew up reading books here, spending hours here to no end, poring over the pages, living out fantasies in my head until my parents called me home. Now it feels nothing like it. The silence is smothering, suffocating. Even with how clean they kept the microfiche room, how the entire small of it lacks a speck of dust or clutter, breathing is a struggle for air. Not far into my stay, I begin to long for the noise outside, and perhaps as a way to calm this unease, I start to hum a tune. One of our favorite songs. Imagine that. Why, of all things, it has to be that silly nursery rhyme, I have not an inkling. It does its job, however. It fills the lull with something far less awkward, far less deafening, and that is enough for a distraction. I have business here. No time for silly daydreams, only important work to attend to. Even if there's a possibility of it being fruitless, by some means it feels like I have to do it. If not for me, then for the people who has been affected by this... What do we even call this? A haunting? A Halloween prank gone wrong? A curse? If Isabella were here, what would she say? Will she panic? Will she be angry I only listen to her now? It all stems from that one moment in the movie house, doesn't it? We could have avoided this had we only taken her warnings to heart. One stupid mistake is all it took to send our normal lives on a downward spiral. Frankly, I'm no longer sure if I'm angry at myself for it, or at the universe for throwing us into this mess. But we can only make do with what little we have, and that's exactly what I'm doing. Going here might not be the best decision, but it's a start.
A good start.
If it doesn't take much time for me to find what I need. A microfiche of old newspapers, long kept in special storage cabinets at the far end of the restricted section. The year is 1620s and beyond, before the city of Luxburn even exists in the records, when the mansion has just been built, and Anselm is nothing more but a small, sleepy hamlet near a river. A lot of pieces are missing. Days, sometimes several consecutive weeks without any records remaining. Often it goes on for years. Troublesome. But as it is, I'm lucky enough to find anything at all considering how far I'm looking back. Can't be picky now. Can't waste time mulling over what record keepers of the old could have done to make this a breeze for me.
I can still work with this.
The faint whir of the microfiche machine keeps me company as I go over each slide, each image, hoping for something that goes beyond what the local lore knows. There are snippets, little mentions of the family that once settled in the house here and there. The usual singing of praises for the couple who helped brought up what was once a tiny settlement into a buzzing town. Nothing substantial, nothing I didn't know before. It continues on like this for a good while, until I come by the years after their deaths. The people of Anselm might have loved Lord William and Lady Elizabeth Ermengarde, mourned their passing, and held them in high esteem in the years after. But it was their daughter that was remembered fondly by the townspeople. If her parents built this town, Lady Charlotte was the one who made it prosper. Remarkable, considering it was a period of recovery from a bout of plague that killed half the town's population, including her parents. What's surprising, though, is this naked lady on the stand. Because she kind of resembles our ghost a little bit. I mean, our ghost wears clothes, so it's hard to tell. And this is a drawing, but the long black hair. Free at last, Air puts a stop to local slave trade. Apparently, her time also marked more than superficial changes to the place. She moved things, changed laws, altered old customs and traditions. If they were done on a woman's whimsy, it doesn't say, but she seems capable enough for more than that. The gist of it is, the town she rebuilt, it's what eventually grew to become Luxburn City, while the nearby Anselm village remained as it was, a relic of the old. A frown swiftly forms in my face.
So, why is there a need to hide this?
One by one, I try to recall every lesson I've gone through, every book, paper, and journal I've read. None of those ever mentioned this. It's always the lord and the lady of the house. Their endearing child always an afterthought to those anecdotes, the one who always took her life in the end. Never someone who restored a town from the brink of collapse or brought new ideas to it. Is it because she's a woman?
That pisses me off.
Granted, not everything is sunshine and rainbows. Not all aspects of her can be considered admirable. But this is history. Some parts are bound to naturally delve into unpleasant territory, whether I like it or not. Luxburn Witch Burns. This was very interesting. So it appears she saved this girl from slavery, and then condemned her to be a witch and burned her. And so I was confused, because the ghost lady doesn't really have burn injuries. She has, like, open wounds that were made with, like, a sharp object. But we've seen that she can turn into this lady. So if they're the same, one ghostly body, maybe the cuts we're seeing are Charlotte's cuts? Is there a combination of injuries? It's interesting. This part's very interesting. Witch hunts, for example, became common near the end of her life, which would have been completely unremarkable and might have gone to become a mere footnote in history if it didn't involve Lady Charlotte and the very slave she saved. It caused quite a stir, enough to leave almost a week's worth of clippings. The girl was eventually burned, condemned by an entire town, at the word of Lady Charlotte alone. But this doesn't really have anything to do with this curse, does it? Unless that woman following us and this slave are the same person. A tale of revenge? How cliché. However, with the lack of accurate photographs, it's impossible to tell. Maybe if I squint, the illustration would start resembling her? But in my field, it doesn't work that way. It shouldn't work that way. I'll be the laughingstock of the community.
This isn't going anywhere.
Mentally exhausted, I take a careful step away from the screen, pressing a palm to my tired eyes. The lack of ample light in this area doesn't help. A headache already threatens to form at the back of my head, yet I'm nowhere near figuring things out. This is simply too much to take in all at once.
I should have asked for someone's help.
Now I'm at a dead end. I start gathering everything around me and placing them back in their respective envelopes for storage, the motions no longer new after volunteering here a number of times. I didn't make much mess anyway, considering the lack of materials available to begin with. I'll have to look somewhere else. The where remains unknown, though. But just as I'm about to slip the last of the slides in, something catches my attention. My hand pauses the microfiche halfway through its protective sleeve. This is one of the few I've set aside without taking a careful look at. It seems like a gossip column at first glance, but upon closer look... I slide it back to the reader, gently turning the dials in search of the page. It takes some time, but once the image becomes clear... There's our beautiful couple. And just now it's occurred to me, do we ever find out what happened to him? We know she killed herself. We now know that the slave was burned to death by her. But I can't remember if we found out what happened to the fiancé. Ermengarde Heir announces betrothal. They must have had this drawing commissioned for this announcement. I don't doubt it. The details are far more intricate, their likeness likely closer to how they might have appeared at the time. They're both recognizable this way, closer to those paintings I've seen in the mansion. However, it's the man standing beside her. Edward Godfrey, according to the article that caught my attention previously. Her first cousin, and eventually her fiancé. Maybe it's the posture, the manner in which he holds himself. Or maybe it's the shape of his eyes, though I can't be too certain about that until I've gotten a better reference. Nevertheless, there is a resemblance. He looks eerily like... My head snaps up, glowering at whoever's running in the floor above. That's important. Any day, I'd march upstairs and reprimand whoever it is.
This is a library, for heaven's sake.
But now isn't the time. I've gotten what I need. Without wasting another minute, I hit the machine's print button for a copy of the page, while my other hand moves to put everything back into storage. A ragged exhale slips from me. Relief, perhaps? Or maybe this is already exhaustion. Regardless, soon I'm closing my eyes as I wait for the printer to finish, if only to stave off a headache building up from... everything. We'll have this nice comforting tune in the back while we read about this. With the help of Professor Andrew Clark, Rebecca was able to gain access to Luxburn Library's restricted section. In there, she discovered numerous accounts about the Ermengardes, all hidden from the public. Her research was interrupted, however, when... Sometime I've even begun humming the same song again, for comfort. Despite my doubts about this, despite all the tension in my shoulders. This may be a small find, but at least I can start somewhere. We can start somewhere. There's a way out of this. I know it. The printer sputters to a halt. However, its sound isn't what makes me snap my eyes open. Not creepy. A feeling, a chilly brush of air behind my back. Brief enough for something sickening to suddenly lodge itself in my throat while I take in my surroundings. It's that suffocating sensation again. Creeping to every part of me, crawling under my skin, draining me little by little of any strength. From that day in the mansion. From that brief moment at the school. Without delay, I grab the papers and make a quick beeline for the door. That's when I jumped. I didn't jump this time. It's most unfortunate. My whole body freezes.
What are you doing, Miss Pink?
So rude. I hold my breath, not daring to make any noise. For a little while, only the sound of papers crumpling under my grasp fills the room. The excitement from earlier gone instantly. Replaced by a cold, seeping dread spreading throughout my limbs. But more than the fear is the anger. It pains me to hear her using my own student's voice against me, and more than once I believed it was really her. She has no right.
Why don't you play with me?
'Cause you're up there and I can't walk on the ceiling like you do, you crazy ghost lady. Although she hasn't made a move, if there isn't a wall behind me, I'll probably take a step back. Anything to put a distance between us, no matter how small, as long as I'm out of her reach. But I steel myself. Because if I do fall back, turn away from her, I'll be left with no way out. I am not dying here.
You think you scare me?
Miss Pink, don't be so rude. I'm waiting.
I'm not afraid of you, you spook. This is one Scotswoman. You aren't getting into an early grave without a fight.
I love her bro came out. It was so good.
Come at me.
Come at me, bro. I expected she'll lunge, prove to me what a monster she is. Instead, all she gives me is a smile, twisted and gnarled. It's as if time has crawled to a stop at the sight of it. A split-second decision, and before I know it, my body shifts. Eyes closing in anticipation, hand grabbing whatever's solid enough on the nearby table and hurling it at her. I don't bother looking if whatever I threw hit its mark. I run, as fast as my legs can carry me, despite my heart threatening to burst out of my chest. But in this maze of bookshelves, with the whole place almost void of people, is there even a place safe enough I can escape to? This was also a very easy decision, because why the heck would you head upstairs and stay in the building? go to the exit and get out where there's people and wide open spaces to run. Do not stay indoors. If there's one, it is out of this room, out of this place, as far away as anyone can get from her. I can think about the rest of what I can do after I'm outside, when there are other people I can ask for help. When she's not chasing after me like this. There's no hesitation in my steps as I race for the restricted section's door, head downstairs and barrel straight for the library's exit. Towards safety, in a desperate bid for my life, library rules be damned. I can no longer hear her behind me, but I'm not taking any chances. A breath almost escapes me as I near the door. A little more. When out of nowhere a library cart careens from a blind corner and slams to my sides. That's gonna be very painful. My back hits the floor with a hard thud, the impact completely knocking the breath out of me. The copper tang of blood gradually spreads over my tongue as I fight to get my bearings back. I force myself to move, even with the excruciating pain coursing through my limbs. The exit's almost there, if only I can... But there's no moment's respite. Ugh, can you imagine seeing this in front of you? Yee! The next thing I know, there's a heavy weight atop me and cold digits slide around my neck, tight like a vice, pressing, closing in, leaving me gasping for air. Through my blurred vision, I can only make out the hateful gleam, the spite in her eyes as she looms over my body, and her grip on my throat grows tighter. Desperation kicks in. My nails dig into her wrists as I struggle against her firm grip, trying to pry her fingers away.
Let go.
She really wants to kill Becca.
Let me go.
Alright. Okay. Yeah! And yes, our girl hit her in the head with a book. I don't think twice. My limbs are moving on their own before what I did could fully register in my brain and my lungs could recover. Behind me, she lets out a cry, sharp, loud, and thunderous against the empty walls of the library. But the fear her wails bring compares nothing to the relief washing over me when I finally make it out. So that's pretty interesting. The ghost has to be tangible when it's like making physical contact with you. So you can hit back. She's a physical thing some of the time at the very least. My knees buckle as soon as my feet hits the pavement, its surface cold and hard against my skin. I've only been in there for a few hours, about 1 or 2, probably? I don't know anymore. Feels like an eternity all the same. My breathing hasn't slowed down yet, and I don't expect it to after going through that. I probably look the most undignified creature on a Sunday morning right now. Out of breath, disheveled, slumped here with a bloodied lip and all. But at present, I simply can't bring myself to care, even when a few passers-by start giving me strange looks. Stare at me all you want. I don't give a single shite. I'm alive. I'm safe. This isn't the end yet, but I'm safe. And inside my bag is something that could get us out of this mess. Nothing definite yet. I don't want to get my hopes up, but it's still something. All of a sudden, if Isabella is here, I'm sure she'll feel the same. She'll even be the first one who'll put her faith on it. Wherever this'll lead us to is a victory on its own. Now all that's left is to find the others. The rest of us trapped in this bloody nightmare. Right on cue, as if in answer to my previous thought, my mobile phone lets out a beep. I pick it up, simply hoping it'll be one of them. Only it's a voicemail that greets me because Ghost Lady interferes with all phones. From Ashton. There's a pang of disappointment, of course, but it brings some reassurance that nothing's happened to at least one of them.
Hey, Becca, call me back when you're free. We need to talk. ASAP.
He ends it right there. The message less than a minute long, curt, and gives nothing away. I let it ease my worries regardless and do as he asks. Because this, too, is another triumph for us. One less thing to worry about. Let's read about her escape. Rebecca was seen limping out of the Luxburn Public Library late Sunday morning. Checking her mobile, a lone voicemail from Ashton was in it, telling her they need to talk ASAP. And that is the end of Becca's chapter. So next time, we are going to start Ashton's chapter, and as you can see, we're going to start pretty late in the game. So exciting stuff is ahead for us.